High above Earth's atmosphere, the Dominion warship Inevitable Victory dropped out of hyperspace, its sleek crystalline hull gleaming in the light of the distant sun. Admiral Thex stood on the command bridge, his four eyes narrowing as they focused on the blue planet below. His species had conquered 1,000 worlds, yet somehow this insignificant rock had escaped their notice until now. Primitive communication signals detected, Admiral reported his sensor officer. Their technology appears to be centuries behind ours. No significant orbital defenses or space fleet detected. Thex's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. Another easy conquest for the glory of the Dominion. Send the standard ultimatum, he ordered. Submit or be subjugated. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility unknown to all but a handful of Earth's governments, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the alien vessel's arrival on high-resolution displays. She allowed herself a small smile. After 20 years of preparation, the moment they had been waiting for had finally arrived. "They're broadcasting, Doctor," announced Captain James Rodriguez, her military liaison. "Standard threat pattern, just like the intercepted signals predicted." Sarah nodded, remembering the day 2 decades ago, when her team had first decoded the alien transmissions. The Dominion's conquests of other worlds, their tactics, their technology. Earth had learned it all while appearing primitive and defenseless. They had used that time wisely. "Signal the other facilities," she ordered. "Initiate Protocol Omega." Around the planet, hidden bunkers hummed to life. Quantum computers that had been running simulations for years shifted to combat protocols. Experimental weapon systems, developed by combining human ingenuity with insights gleaned from intercepted alien tech specs, powered up. And in hardened silos, a new generation of defensive satellites waited to be launched. On the Inevitable Victory, Admiral Thex grew impatient. "No response to our ultimatum. Prepare to demonstrate our..." His orders were cut short by urgent alerts. His sensor officer's voice rose in alarm. "Admiral, multiple launches detected from the surface. Energy signatures unlike anything in our database." Thex rushed to the tactical display, all four eyes widening in shock. Hundreds of objects were rising from the planet's surface, their paths clearly targeted. How had they missed this? The humans were supposed to be primitive. Sarah watched the alien vessel's reactions through their quantum-encrypted sensor network. Everything was proceeding exactly as their simulations had predicted. The Dominion, like so many conquering forces throughout history, had fatally underestimated their target. "Launch second wave," she ordered calmly. "Let's show them why it's unwise to threaten Earth." The first wave of defensive satellites surrounded the Dominion vessel, activating electromagnetic fields that disrupted its shields. Shields whose frequencies Earth had known about for years. The second wave carried more direct countermeasures. On his ship, Admiral Thex watched in growing horror as his supposedly superior technology failed against weapons he had never seen before. "Impossible," he roared. "They're savages. They barely have spacecraft." "Admiral," his tactical officer shouted, "they're using some kind of targeted quantum field. Our systems here." The mighty warship's power grid collapsed, leaving it dead in space. As emergency systems struggled to restart, Admiral Thex received his first direct transmission from Earth. "This is Dr. Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Initiative," came the calm voice. "We've spent 20 years preparing for this moment. You have 2 choices: retreat and inform your leaders that Earth is not to be trifled with, or remain and learn firsthand what else we've developed while you thought us primitive. You have 5 minutes to decide." In the mountain facility, Sarah turned to Captain Rodriguez. "Signal the other facilities to prepare for either outcome. If they choose poorly, we'll give them a demonstration they'll never forget." The captain nodded, a fierce grin on his face. After all these years of preparation, almost hoped they choose poorly. Would love to show them what humanity can really do. Sarah understood the sentiment, but hoped it wouldn't come to that. This demonstration should be enough to make the Dominion reconsider their expansion plans, at least where Earth was concerned. But if not, well, They had plenty more surprises ready. Above, the Dominion warship hung powerless in space, its crew coming to terms with a shocking reality. They had severely underestimated humanity, and they were about to learn that was a very dangerous mistake to make. The Dominion's response came swiftly, but not in the way Admiral Thex had intended. As his disabled warship drifted in space, 3 more Dominion vessels emerged from hyperspace, their weapons primed. Leading them was the Eternal Dominance, commanded by Grand Marshal Xena, one of the Empire's most decorated warriors. Dr. Sarah Chen watched the new arrivals on her quantum-enhanced displays, her expression unchanged. "Right on schedule," she murmured. "They always send reinforcements in groups of 3. Captain Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. "You don't seem concerned about facing 4 Dominion warships instead of 1. "That's because we're not really facing 4 warships," Sarah replied, tapping commands into her console. "We're facing 4 opportunities to demonstrate why the Dominion should leave Earth alone." Around the planet, more hidden facilities activated. In the depths of the Pacific Ocean, massive underwater complexes began powering up systems that the Dominion couldn't even imagine. Beneath the Antarctic ice, automated factories that had been producing advanced weaponry for decades initiated their combat protocols. On the Eternal Dominance, Grand Marshal Xena surveyed the situation with all 6 of her eyes, a sign of how seriously she took this unexpected development. "Report on the weapon systems that disabled the inevitable victory," she commanded. Her science officer's response was filled with confusion. "Marshal, we can't even detect how they did it. Their technology doesn't match anything in our database. It's as if they've developed along a completely different technological path than any civilization we've encountered." "Impossible," Xena declared. "All species follow predictable technological progression. These humans barely have space flight capability." "Marshal," her sensor operator suddenly shouted. Massive energy spike from the planet's ocean. Something's. The surface of the Pacific broke as a massive structure rose from the depths. It wasn't a weapon platform or a defensive station. It was an entire city, its architecture unlike anything the Dominion had ever seen. Its surface gleamed with an artificial intelligence-driven metamaterial that could adapt to any type of attack. "Dominion vessels," Sarah's voice transmitted clearly to all 4 ships. "That disabled warship in front of you was your warning shot. What you're seeing now is just a small demonstration of our defensive capabilities. Would you like to see more?" In response, Grand Marshal Xena ordered an immediate attack. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes streaked toward the risen city, only to be caught in quantum fields that redirected their energy, feeding it into Earth's defense systems. "Thank you for the power donation," Sarah transmitted calmly. "Now, allow us to return the favor." The city's surface rippled, and suddenly the Dominion ships found their own weapons being fired back at them, enhanced by technologies they didn't understand. The Eternal Dominance's shields buckled under impacts that seemed to ignore the laws of physics as the Dominion understood them. "Marshal," Xena's tactical officer cried out. "They're not just using our energy against us. They're improving it somehow. Each shot is more effective than our original weapons." In the mountain facility, Captain Rodriguez watched in satisfaction as the Dominion ships struggled against just one of Earth's defense systems. "Should we show them the rest?" he asked. Sarah shook her head. "Not yet. Let them think this is all we have. If they retreat now, it keeps our other capabilities secret. If they persist," she let the thought hang. On the Eternal Dominance, Grand Marshal Xena was facing something she'd never encountered in centuries of warfare. An enemy that had completely outmaneuvered the Dominion before the first shot was even fired. The humans hadn't just prepared for this conflict, they had revolutionized warfare itself. "Marshal," her second-in-command suggested quietly, "perhaps we should consider a tactical retreat. We need to analyze their capabilities, develop countermeasures." "No," Xena declared, her pride overwhelming her tactical judgment. "The Dominion does not retreat. Launch our ground forces. Let's see how their impressive technology handles direct invasion." In the mountain facility, Sarah's quantum computers detected the launch of Dominion dropships. She allowed herself a small smile. Now we get to show them why challenging humanity on the ground is an even bigger mistake than challenging us in space. The Dominion was about to learn that humanity's hidden arsenal wasn't just technological. It was tactical, strategic, and born from millennia of warfare that had shaped human thinking in ways the aliens couldn't comprehend. As the dropships entered Earth's atmosphere, defenses that had been centuries in the making prepared to teach them this lesson the hard way. The Dominion dropships burned through Earth's atmosphere, their hulls glowing red-hot as they descended toward what their commanders believed would be an easy ground campaign. Grand Marshal Xena watched from orbit, confident that her elite shock troops would overwhelm any ground resistance the humans might offer. In her mountain facility, Dr. Sarah Chen brought up a holographic display of the incoming invasion force. Interesting, she mused. They're using their standard invasion pattern. It seems they haven't realized that we've studied every ground campaign they've conducted for the past 20 years. Captain Rodriguez nodded toward a row of status indicators, all glowing green. The defense networks are ready. Should we introduce them to our ground forces? Not yet, Sarah replied. Let them land first. Let them think they have a foothold. Sometimes the best way to win a fight is to let your opponent think they're winning. The dropships landed in coordinated groups across several continents, disgorging thousands of Dominion warriors in powered combat armor. They moved with practiced precision, expecting to find primitive human military forces armed with chemical projectile weapons and simple explosives. What they found instead was emptiness. No resistance, no defenders, just quiet cities and empty streets. Marshal, reported the ground commander, no opposition encountered. Moving to secure primary objectives. Xena's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. Perhaps the humans' impressive space defenses were their only real achievement. Proceed with standard pacification protocols, she ordered. That was exactly what Sarah had been waiting for. They're committed, she announced. Time to show them how humanity fights a ground war. Initiate Protocol Theta. The empty streets suddenly came alive. The very ground beneath the Dominion troops began to shift as nanite swarms emerged from hidden reservoirs, transforming the battlefield itself into a weapon. Buildings that had appeared primitive revealed themselves to be advanced hardpoints, bristling with weaponry that didn't just target the invaders' bodies, but attacked their technology directly. What is this? The ground commander shouted as his troops' powered armor began to malfunction. The nanites were infiltrating their systems, rewriting their combat protocols, turning their own equipment against them. But the real surprise came from above. The clouds themselves seemed to come alive, descending as millions of microdrones that had been seeded into Earth's atmosphere years ago. Each one was smaller than an insect, but together they formed an intelligent combat system that could think and adapt faster than any conventional army. Marshal, the ground commander's voice was frantic now. We're losing control of our equipment. The humans, they're not fighting us directly. They're letting their machines do the fighting. Sarah watched the chaos unfold through multiple feeds. Humans learned long ago that the most effective way to fight isn't always to meet force with force. She explained to Captain Rodriguez, sometimes it's better to let your enemy defeat themselves. The Dominion troops found themselves fighting their own equipment as the nanites reprogrammed their weapons and armor. The microdrones created localized electromagnetic fields that disrupted their communications and sensors. And beneath their feet, the very infrastructure of Earth's cities revealed itself to be one massive defensive weapon. Send in the reserves, Xena ordered, dispatching another wave of dropships. But as they entered the atmosphere, they discovered another of humanity's surprises. The air itself seemed to turn against them, thick with programmable matter that had been quietly seeded throughout Earth's atmosphere over decades of preparation. In the mountain facility, Sarah received a priority alert. They're preparing to launch orbital strikes, she announced. Time to show them our orbital defense grid. Around the planet, thousands of satellites that had appeared to be simple communications relays revealed their true nature. They weren't just defensive platforms. They were nodes in a quantum-linked network that could predict and counter any attack before it was even launched. Impossible. Xena raged as her ship's targeting systems failed repeatedly. How could they have prepared all of this without us knowing? Because you saw what you expected to see, Sarah transmitted to the Dominion fleet. You saw our old chemical rockets and assumed we were primitive. You saw our satellite network and assumed it was simple communications technology. You never considered that we might be showing you exactly what we wanted you to see. The ground battle had become a rout. Dominion troops were either retreating in panic or surrendering as their equipment turned against them. The microdrones had herded them into containment zones where resistance was futile, and the nanite swarms had rendered their weapons useless. Your ground forces are now under our control, Sarah announced to Xena. You can either withdraw your remaining ships and acknowledge Earth as a sovereign power to be left alone, or we can demonstrate what else we've been developing while you weren't paying attention. In the mountain facility, Captain Rodriguez watched the Dominion forces disarray with satisfaction. Think they'll take the hint this time? Sarah's expression remained neutral as she studied the tactical displays. If they don't, we still have several more surprises ready. Humanity has spent centuries fighting itself, Captain. We've learned a few things about warfare that the Dominion, for all its technological might, never had to consider. Above, Grand Marshal Xena faced a decision that would define her career, and possibly the future of the Dominion itself. The humans had outmaneuvered them at every turn, using strategies and technologies that seemed to break the very rules of warfare as the Dominion understood them. Grand Marshal Xena had never faced defeat in her centuries of service to the Dominion. Now, watching her ground forces surrender to the humans' sophisticated defense systems, she made a decision that would shake the Empire to its core. She would not retreat. Deploy the world breakers, she commanded, her voice cold with fury. If we cannot conquer this world, we will make an example of it. In the mountain facility, Dr. Sarah Chen's quantum detection systems registered the activation of the Dominion's most devastating weapons. World breakers, massive energy projectors capable of cracking a planet's crust. It was exactly the response their simulations had predicted. They're desperate now, Sarah observed, her fingers dancing across her control panels. Captain Rodriguez, initiate Protocol Omega Black. It's time to show them our final defensive line. The captain's eyes widened. Are you sure? We've never actually tested the planetary shield in combat conditions. The Dominion has forced our hand, Sarah replied. Besides, who said we haven't tested it? As the world breaker weapons powered up, something extraordinary happened. The very air around Earth began to shimmer with an iridescent light. Decades of preparation had led to this moment. The activation of humanity's greatest achievement in defensive technology. What is this? Xena demanded as her sensors struggled to make sense of what they were seeing. The energy readings were unlike anything in Dominion records. Marshal, her science officer reported, voice trembling, they've created some kind of quantum barrier around their entire planet. It's using our own weapon's energy to strengthen itself. Sarah's voice came through clear on all Dominion frequencies. Your world breakers rely on quantum destabilization to tear planets apart. Did you really think we wouldn't develop countermeasures after detecting their energy signatures in your transmissions years ago? The world breakers fired, their devastating beams striking Earth's new shield. But instead of destruction, something remarkable occurred. The shield didn't just absorb the attack, it learned from it. With each impact, the quantum barrier adapted, its artificial intelligence analyzing and improving its defensive capabilities in real time. Impossible, Xena roared. No species has ever developed quantum adaptive shielding on this scale. That's because no species has had to, Sarah responded. Humanity has spent its entire history fighting, adapting, and overcoming impossible odds. We took your own weapon designs and didn't just counter them. We revolutionized them. The shield began to pulse with accumulated energy. In the mountain facility, Sarah nodded to Captain Rodriguez. Show them what happens when humanity decides to push back. The quantum barrier suddenly reversed its polarity, channeling the World Breaker's own energy back at the Dominion fleet. But it wasn't just reflecting the attack, it was enhancing it, using principles of physics that the Dominion had never considered. Xena watched in horror as her mighty ships were bombarded with their own weaponry, enhanced by human ingenuity. Shields failed, hulls buckled, and one by one, the pride of the Dominion fleet was reduced to drifting wreckage. How? Xena demanded, her ship shuddering under the assault. How did you advance so far without us knowing? Because you made the mistake all empires make, Sarah explained. You assumed that technological progress follows a predictable path. But humanity, we've never been good at following paths. We make our own. In orbit, the remaining Dominion ships struggled to maintain position as their systems failed under the continued assault. Their mighty world breakers, weapons that had destroyed countless civilizations, had been turned into tools of their own defeat. Your entire strategy was based on overwhelming force, Sarah continued, her voice calm but firm. Ours was based on adaptation. Every weapon you used, every tactic you employed, taught us something new. And now we're teaching you. The quantum barrier pulsed again, and this time, it didn't just reflect energy. It began to extend tendrils of pure force, reaching out to ensnare the Dominion vessels. Their greatest weapons had become their greatest vulnerability. Marshal, Xena's second-in-command urged, we must retreat. The humans, they're beyond anything we've encountered. This isn't just defensive technology. They've learned how to turn our own capabilities against us. In the mountain facility, Captain Rodriguez watched the Dominion fleet's disarray with a mixture of awe and satisfaction. They never saw it coming, did they? All this time, they thought they were the advanced ones. Sarah shook her head. They were advanced. They just forgot that true advancement isn't about having the biggest weapons. It's about having the ability to adapt, to think differently, to turn disadvantages into advantages. That's what humanity has always done best. Grand Marshal Xena stood on the bridge of her failing flagship, watching as humanity's quantum barrier systematically dismantled her once mighty fleet. Throughout her long career, she had never imagined a scenario where the Dominion would face not just defeat, but complete technological superiority from a supposedly primitive species. Marshal, her tactical officer reported, voice trembling, we've lost contact with 70% of our fleet. The humans' quantum field it's not just disabling our ships, it's rewriting their core systems. In the mountain facility, Dr. Sarah Chen monitored the situation with characteristic calm. Their command and control structure is collapsing. She noted to Captain Rodriguez, time to offer them a choice they won't expect. You're not seriously considering. Rodriguez began, then saw the look in her eyes. You are, aren't you? Sarah opened a channel to the remaining Dominion ships. Grand Marshal Xena, this is Dr. Chen. You've seen what humanity can do when threatened. Now let me show you what we can do when we choose to be merciful. The quantum barrier that had been systematically destroying the Dominion fleet suddenly shifted its energy pattern. Instead of attacking, it began repairing the damaged ships, demonstrating a level of control over matter and energy that left even the Dominion's most experienced scientists speechless. This was never about destroying you, Sarah continued. It was about showing you that the galaxy is bigger than your empire's understanding of it. Humanity doesn't want war. We prepared for it because you gave us no choice. But what we really excel at is innovation, adaptation, and finding new ways forward. Xena watched in disbelief as her ship's systems came back online, not just repaired but somehow improved. Why? She demanded. Why show mercy when you could destroy us? Because that's another thing that makes humans different, Sarah replied. We learn from history. Every empire that rules through force alone eventually falls. But knowledge, cooperation, innovation, these are the things that truly advance civilization. The quantum barrier now surrounded the Dominion fleet like a protective cocoon, its energy patterns telling a story of possibility rather than destruction. Captain Rodriguez watched the displays with growing understanding. "You planned this from the start, didn't you?" he asked Sarah. "All of it. The defensive demonstrations, the counterattacks, even the quantum barrier. It wasn't just about defending Earth." Sarah nodded. Earth never needed to become part of the Dominion's empire, but perhaps the Dominion needs to learn what humanity can teach. About innovation, about adaptation, about seeing beyond the obvious path. She opened another channel, this time broadcasting to both the Dominion fleet and Earth's combined defense network. "We're offering you a choice, Grand Marshal. Return to your empire with your fleet intact, along with data about everything you've witnessed here. Show them that there are other ways to advance, other paths to power than conquest." The quantum barrier shifted again, creating a stable hyperspace corridor, another technology the Dominion had thought impossible. Or, Sarah continued, "Stay, not as conquerors, but as partners. Let us show you how humanity's way of thinking could transform your empire into something greater than mere conquest could ever achieve." In orbit, Senna faced the most important decision of her career. The humans had defeated her fleet, but more than that, they had shattered everything she thought she knew about technological progress and power. "You would share your technologies?" she asked, suspicion warring with curiosity in her voice. "We would share something far more valuable," Sarah replied. "We would share our way of thinking. The Dominion has conquered 1,000 worlds, but imagine what you could achieve if you learned to innovate like humanity does." The offer hung in space like a new star being born, a point of light offering a different future. In the mountain facility, Sarah and Captain Rodriguez waited, knowing that this moment could reshape the galaxy's future. "The Dominion has always believed that power comes from strength," Xena said finally, her voice thoughtful. "But you've shown us that true power comes from adaptation, from thinking differently." She paused, then made her decision. "We accept your offer of partnership." As the quantum barrier reconfigured itself from a weapon into a bridge between two civilizations, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had won not just through superior technology or military might, but by offering something the Dominion had never encountered before, a completely new way of looking at the universe. "Captain," she said, turning to Rodriguez, "send word to all Earth defense installations. Operation First Contact was a success. Phase 2, Galactic Cooperation and Innovation Exchange, begins now." Above Earth, the remaining Dominion ships moved into peaceful orbit, their crews already beginning to learn that humanity's greatest weapon had never been their advanced technology. It had been their ability to imagine different futures and make them real. The age of conquest was ending. The age of innovation was about to begin.